Okay, so you're probably wondering how I got here. I mean, I've only been making YouTube videos on health and fitness for 4 years, getting on my soapbox every week to chat about why we should be focusing on our health above all else. So surely he practices what he preaches. No? Well, I did, until I didn't. Let's take a rewind. About 7 months ago, while doing ab wall rollouts, I pulled something deep in my hip. After ultrasounds, MRIs, and a good deal of poking around my gentleman bits from physios, at least I hope they were physios, I found out I was suffering from a sports hernia, which caused me a load of pain deep in my abdomen whenever I tried to tense my core. This was the first time a chronic injury had stopped me from training how I'd like to, and of course it came at a time when other aspects of my life were piling on. Stress from work, a lack of routine from traveling, and the time it takes to run this channel all came to a head in a downward spiral of bad eating and sleeping habits. I want to pause for a second and stress that I'm not saying all of this for sympathy. There are a lot of people out there with really big problems. Struggling to feed your kids, not able to heat your home, supporting with sick relatives. These are all problems that people deal with every day, so I don't want to position this as a woe is me monologue. But it did speak to a fact that I give a bunch of advice on well-being every week on this channel, and while I've always enjoyed focusing on the physical, when my mental wellness was shaken, my entire world spiraled. I gained 8 kilograms, 17 pounds for those across the pond. That is a 10% top up on my body weight, and I piled all of that on in only 3 months. I felt horrible, which made the little exercise I was doing a lot harder, and I knew something had to change and that I had to be the one responsible to change it. I first decided to not just leverage this channel for accountability, but to also use it as a case for how, through some simple steps, we can all improve on aspects of our health. In a recent video, I mentioned that I would use the next 28 days to turn around my situation. Leaning on the advice that I've given out on this channel for years, my first port of call was to walk more. Walking does so much for us. Yes, we're burning calories, but we're also outside in nature. We're moving our bodies, we're making headspace a priority. In the time since, my daily step count average has increased month on month, when I remember to wear my smartwatch, and walking has put me in a great position to carry out step 2, which is focusing on other forms of health. When we get injured, we focus on what we can no longer do, which is natural as injuries stop us from hitting our fitness goals. But there are always going to be some other aspect of health we can divert our attention to. In my case, I struggle to flex and brace my core, which instantly roll off my primary calisthenics goals. But my main compound lifts, the bread and butter of all things bodyweight training, I could still do, which is fortunate as these are also the best exercises for piling on muscle, and in my case, getting rid of the rubber tire that had been hitching a ride on my waistline for the last 3 months. I worked to high rep sets as I've always responded best to this when it comes to body recomposition, and by the halfway mark, I had started to notice a lot of difference, but what we do in the gym is only a small fraction of the picture. I knew it was my eating habits that had thrown me more than anything, so getting back to the way of eating that allowed me to feel more energized and generally fitter was a priority. My go-to is intermittent fasting, a 12 o'clock to 8 o'clock eating window where I always break my fast with a bowl of vegetables. Like most people, what I eat varies, but I tend to skew heavily towards high protein, mostly chicken, beef, and the odd egg, high carbs, bread, rice, and potatoes, with moderately low fats. And as I mentioned, I eat a load of greens to the point where I usually have to have a bowl of greens on the side of whatever meal I'm eating. So I've stuck by these strategies for a month. What has been the result after 28 days? Well, I'll let you see for yourself. This 28-day transformation really is calisthenics coming into its own. Bodyweight training literally allows us to train anywhere, and moving the muscles in our body in the way that they're designed to move only better optimizes this sort of transformation. I'm down 5 of the 8 kilos I put on, and I feel so much better. To be clear, all of the stresses I mentioned earlier still exist. I still work a 50-hour week, I still spend my weekends working on this channel, and I have family commitments, we all do. But I tell you what, I'd rather go into all of those things feeling how I do now than I did even a few weeks ago. I'm also conscious that I was attacking this from a position of a trained athlete. With my training history, it was always going to be an easier turnaround for me compared to somebody who's never picked up a dumbbell before. But all these principles still stand, and I'm going to use this experience to shape how I talk about this in the future. But for now, I'll leave you with this.